I'm going to start with Chris Bernard with American Conservation Coalition, PJ Mikesh with the Special Competitive Studies Project, Chris Murray with the United States Air Force, me too, veteran, and then last but not least is Joseph McCut. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's
okay,
right.
cool. For the Center of Strategic and International Studies. I asked that they introduce themselves a little more to all of us, just so we can all have kind of a conversation versus me asking them questions. So let's kick it off with some introductions as to who y'all are and what y'all do and what's up.
You want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Joseph Mikett. I'm the director of the Energy Security and Climate Change Program at CSIS, or the Center for Strategic and International Studies. We are the world's preeminent national security and foreign policy think tank. Why am I here? My group works to formulate strategies for the U.S. to build energy security, respond to global risks like climate change, and resolve energy injustice around the world. And the reason why we think geothermal, amidst a lot of other innovative energy technologies, is important to those goals is it can help us resolve the need to meet new energy demand, to create options for businesses and countries as they devise their energy strategies, in particular options that are firm, affordable, and low carbon. So I look forward to today's conversation.
Great.
My name is Chris Murray. I am a technical advisor to Dr. Hartman, who is with Fed staff with the Air Force. He put me in this position so he could take credit for anything I say and throw me under the bus for anything he doesn't agree with. So thank you, sir, for the opportunity. Geothermal is a national security imperative. Our office at the Air Force Office of Energy Assurance is trying to figure out how to unleash American dominance, energy dominance, for our national, our economic security, and our military preparedness. And one of the strategies for that Trump laid out in his executive order is to tap into America's abundant supply of geothermal energy to create electricity. And we need electricity. It's vital to the mission of the Air Force and all the DoD services. Without electricity, our mission doesn't run. We can't get done what we need to do. So the services, when I say the services, the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, all of us are 100% in on exploring next generation geothermal technologies. And we want to be, and why are we doing this? You've already heard it before, but it's the promise. It's the promise of geothermal energy anywhere. If we can just get resilient energy supply below our feet, that's amazing. That means no supply chain issues. That means we can continue our mission even if there's a grid disruption. 24/7, 365 resilience, baseload power, what's not to love about that? And in the spirit of energy dominance, geothermal's, for lack of a better word, indomitable. It's buried miles deep. What if a determined adversary wants to come and attack our system and our grid? It's protected. What's not to love about that? So that is why we are all in geothermal. And I'll end by a couple points. We also want to be your customer and your business developer. We're not just talking about this, we're trying to make it happen. In terms of your customer, how many people out there in the geothermal community can you say that you have a customer who has, let's see, one of the largest real estate portfolios in the world, one of the largest energy consumption needs in the world, and we want you to come drill in our backyard, and we want to see if you can be a success and turn a profit and give us electricity. And if you do, we'll give you a 20, 30, 40 year, maybe longer power purchase agreement. And by the way, we got the best credit rating in the world. And we pay our bills on time. So hopefully that will let you raise some cheap capital to build on our bases. But it doesn't stop there. We want to be your partner in development. We don't want to just rely on taxpayer dollars. We want to bring together a proposal to investors and others, so third-party financiers can own and operate and maintain those facilities on our basis. So you can turn a profit and provide us electrons so we can focus on what we need to focus on, which is our mission. And we've raised some millions already for some of our partners like Sage. We want to do that more with other people. So we want to do this differently and be your partner. We also, you're saying yourself, you're the federal government. Why would you want to work with the federal government? They're so slow and so bureaucratic, and might as well go elsewhere. There's a lot of truth to that. But we have some powerful procurement authorities where we have actually thrown out the rule book for federal acquisition regulation. We can throw that out of the window, and so we can have a real conversation about the art of the possible. You do not need to have a huge back room of lawyers and attorneys and regulatory experts in order to cut a long-term power purchase agreement with us. We want to make it easy. And to show our commitment over the past couple of years, we have built a cohort of vendors willing to work with us. And just last week, partially with the help of Project Interspace, we have down-selected another 11 firms who we can team with to be, we hope, their customer as well as their business developer. And we want to march together on this new energy frontier. And this new energy frontier that we've opened up for them, they can go to any base, anywhere in the world, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force. They've already checked the box of competition. And they can have a conversation about the art of the possible of developing a project together. What's not to love about that? Energy that's everywhere, and we throw out the rule book so you guys can do what you do best, is develop. Develop it for our national security and our energy dominance and for our military security. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. Jay, thank you so much. My name is PJ Makish, Special Competitive Studies Project. We grew out of a National Commission on Artificial Intelligence, and we're funded to continue the mission of positioning and organizing the United States to stay ahead of our rivals like China. So we've expanded beyond AI to all technologies we think will drive the destiny of nations, of which we think energy is one of those. I'm a senior advisor for technology and economy. I was a career Air Force where I was operational and then would run tech programs when I could, and eventually got to do that at a strategic level, both on the commission at the White House in the China shop and now at SESP. We have a plan for the United States to lead in energy that includes geothermal. We see a mosaic of energies that could make sure that we're still a next exporter of energy and an energy security future that we developed with the private sector as if something that was president ready. And so happy to talk about that or anything else or why we believe in geothermal. Chris, over to you.
Awesome. Well, echoing that, thank you all for being here and for your time, and appreciate being invited to speak on the panel. My name is Chris Barnard. I'm the president of the American Conservation Coalition. We're the largest conservative grassroots environmental organization in the country. We have over 60,000 young members on hundreds of college campuses. And you might ask yourself, like, why is there a conservative environmental organization? I was born in 1998. My entire life on environmental and climate and clean energy issues has been Al Gore in the early 2000s to basically AOC in the last few years. And for people my generation who might be leaning conservative, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for them to engage in these issues. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this panel and everything happening here today is that issues around the environment, but especially around energy and clean energy, they don't exist in a vacuum. Like these issues are related to national security, to energy security, to growing your economy. And I think for a very long time, they've become a little too ideological and not practical enough. And so at our organization, we advocate for solutions and innovations that we believe will not only be good for the environment, but also be good for the economy, for national security, and integrating those different things into a holistic vision of what American energy dominance looks like. We did a survey of our 60,000 members a few months ago, and we asked them, here's a list of energy sources. What are your favorite energy sources? And I can proudly say that the top two were nuclear energy and geothermal energy. And so that begs the question, why would those two be the most exciting to these young conservatives? And the reality is that because they hit the three most important elements of energy within the energy trilemma, right? You need affordability, you need reliability, and also cleanliness. Clean baseload power is incredibly important, and our view as an organization is that for a long time, the environmental movement has kind of ignored some aspects of that balance, and I'm just extremely excited about the potential for geothermal to right some of that, and so I'm very excited to be here and talk about that.
Sure thing. Joseph, I'd like to start with you. My question is, geothermal is one of the only energy sources, other than natural gas, oil and gas, where we have a clear advantage over China, specifically. How does the U.S. and our allies going big on geothermal impacts and development can further work through the geopolitical context with China?
Sure. Thank you. And I think there's two ways that I would look at that question. How do our investments in geothermal really change the geopolitics of the global energy system? One is domestically focused. As Chris said, as everybody here is focused on, this is a resource that can be reliable, it can be, we believe, low cost in the future, and it's going to be low carbon. And that means that firms, state utilities can all be bought in regardless of whether or not they're red or blue. We have some technological advantages to be at the front of the race toward scalable and low-cost geothermal energy, and that's important for our own economic security. If we look at the economic frontier, and PJ and his group do this, we're doing it as well at CSIS, it's all electric. Whether that is new semiconductor fabs going in Arizona, Montana, New York, whether that's the 50 gigawatts or 100 gigawatts of AI data centers that we anticipate coming online in the next 5 years, all of the increases we hope to see in economic productivity and in security are going to be electric. That's even before you get to EVs, home electrification, and all those other sources of potential load growth. And if we think about the 21st century being a race toward economic productivity against particularly an adversary which is larger than us, but maybe not as productive or as innovative, then geothermal as a means to power that economic productivity is absolutely essential. On the other side of the equation, thinking about the role of the U.S. internationally, one of the biggest barriers, in my view, and I'm open to comments from the colleagues here, for the U.S. to be more politically engaged, particularly in a bipartisan way around climate change, is almost every value chain associated with decarbonization today runs 85 to 90% through China. And that just creates a strategic and a political challenge if we're trying to be heavily invested not only in our own emissions reductions, but in emissions reductions around the world. So say we're going to use American strategic capital to help deploy energy infrastructure in Southeast Asian economies, where the U.S. wants a really strong footprint and needs new geopolitical relationships. What good does it do if we're buying into the Chinese supply chain and just further integrating Chinese economic productivity with those countries? We need options there too. And that's where our tech advantage in geothermal could be extremely essential. Now, I don't think that's just a happy story. That requires a strategy. It's not like Sinopec doesn't know how to drill holes in the ground. It's not like Chinese manufacturers can't make turbines. And so it's not just a matter of tech advantage. It's the whole stack of having a policy framework that sees U.S. services and technologies deployed abroad rapidly. And there actually I think we could see the energy dominance impulses of the administration being applied to much more than oil and natural gas as thus far has been talked about.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Very insightful. I wanted to ask Mr. Murray a question about the Air Force and why the military as a whole, across the Department of Defense and the Air Force specifically, is interested in geothermal, aside from the obvious that it's hard to reach, hard to turn off. But let's talk more about the benefits and resiliency that it'll bring to our installations and maybe even to the states that those installations are in.
I've told this joke. I'm not very funny, but I'm going to tell this joke, so I hope you will laugh again this time, please. There are three important things you need to remember when working with the Department of Defense. I don't see anyone writing. There's three important things. The first is energy resilience. and I can't remember the other two. It's all about energy resilience. You just mentioned the electrification. The electrification of our battle space is increasing. There might be a base in Nevada communicating to it with a satellite to a mission overseas. An assistant secretary of the Air Force a number of years ago told a story that they were trying to do a good thing to a bad person overseas. But the grid went down in the US. They no longer had the signal. They could no longer execute their mission, and they were seconds from executing the mission. Electrification, 100% energy resilience, energy assurance is everything that we need. Now, getting to your broader question about the broader community, we want you to come on our bases and make and build facilities. We want to be your off-taker, your primary off-taker, but we also recognize that the underground footprint of some of these resources can be much broader than that. And our authorities for DoD, we allow you to sell electrons to someone else. And that is also attractive to us because a lot of our soldiers, sailors, and airmen, they don't live on base, they live in the community. So you want to have a resilient infrastructure on base for our mission, but you also want to make sure that their kids and their wives and their dads at home, have food in the fridge and isn't going to spoil when something's going down. But also, let's take since we have a heavy imprint in Texas today in this event, quick question. Do you know how much money you could have made in Texas last year if you provided 1 megawatt hour of electricity to the grid 24/7? How much could you have made? Anyone know? I asked. 1 megawatt hour 24/7 using demand response resources and optimizing them all through the course of the years, multiple programs. It's about $370,000. That's nice. Why are you making that much money? Because Texas needs those resources to maintain a stable grid. So we don't just want to have resilience for our mission and energy for our community, but it also, siting on our base, selling electrons to other people can actually help with the financing of these projects. We want to help you on the end be the long-term off-taker, but we also want you to leverage the marketplace to fully finance this. And if you got extra electrons, then it's great. Cindy and Sage is trying to build a facility in Texas. I don't know, Cindy, if you heard that stat, but maybe that's a way to help out with that project in Texas. Because she might have actually extra electrons by twice than what we actually need to make that base 100% energy resilient. I'll stop there.
Thank you. PJ, over to you. It seems like geothermal can help us win energy security and AI, and the Trump administration is already focused on geothermal. But what else can be done to make sure that we're fully utilizing this resource and the skills that can give us this advantage?
Yeah, fantastic question. If you look at our action plans, we believe that the public-private cooperation that normally happens in the U.S. happens when you have a tech ambition, like a moonshot. So if you look at the Apollo program, 81% of everything that was achieved in Apollo the last 3 years, 66 to 69, was on contract with the private sector. So once you have that target out there, it tends to draw capital from both parts into achieving an objective. So if you open our action plans, we always open with the actual tech ambition. Instead of just saying we should have a moonshot, we say what it ought to be, right? So I think geothermal would benefit from that. I think that anybody involved in geothermal should offer what that noble goal should be. We've offered a few in energy writ large, and we've moved on some in fusion to include creating a fusion commission right now to see fusion energy on the grid by 2030 in at least 3 states. It's a high bar. But we believe that what people think is possible, it's actually possible or almost never the same. And the science of stretch goals means you have a target in geothermal without going to crazy town. So you got to do that. That's one. 2 is like, as it's been mentioned, we have substantial competitive advantages in this space. So interesting you said that the students kind of were into geothermal and nukes, because in our scorecard that opens our plan, we have said the United States has strategic advantages over China in geothermal fission and fusion. We've called 3 other energy sectors up for grabs, and then another 4 which China just dominates, to include solar and wind. Even though we were critical in developing the technologies, they scaled it and they dominate that space. 8% of all energy generated in China, approximately, is generated by renewable energies, and including solar and wind. So number 2, it's harnessing those strategic advantages in a plan. That's what we've attempted to do. So if you look at our action plan, it's what is that tech goal? What are those competitive advantages? How do you actually bring them together, not mythically, but actually in programs? And so, I just end by saying, we just think that there is no energy power, national leverage over other nations without programs. You gotta have a program to go build out what the president's calling for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My question is to you, Chris Bernard. Last year, you had penned a piece on how energy security is national security, and we want to talk about how geothermal can fit into that picture. And then I have another question about ACC.
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about this idea of the energy trilemma, right? You have energy affordability, energy reliability, and then energy sustainability. And I think for a while, especially my lifetime, like you ask a young person, like, where does your energy come from? They have no clue. They don't have an understanding of how much you're paying for it, what the reliability aspects of it are. And they just think, oh, we'll just flick on a switch and we'll have 100% renewables by 2030 or whatever it might be. And they just have no understanding of the relationship between energy and national security and economic security. And you look at countries like Germany and elsewhere where they've prioritized energy sustainability over energy reliability or affordability, like shutting down nuclear, shutting down natural gas, things like that. And at the same time, you have other people who are trying to get rid of the sustainability part of that dimension. And my argument in that essay was that there's actually a world in which you could have energy reliability, affordability, and sustainability at the same time, but you need to do it the right way. For countries like Germany that did not do that, not only have their emissions then start going up again when they're reopening coal plants and having to import dirtier gas from Russia and things like that, but then also their reliability and affordability has been shot. I think geothermal is a perfect example, similar to nukes and others, that really kind of hits the 3 pieces of that energy trilemma. And when you talk about energy sustainability, it's not just about traditional pollutants or carbon emissions, although those are important parts of the dimension. It's also like, how much longer will you have that energy source around? Like, we know that fossil fuels are like technically finite. We don't know how much, like it could be 100 years, could be a couple 100 years. There's competing theories on that. But nuclear is essentially infinite, right? Solar and wind are infinite. Geothermal is infinite, and the question is, how can you tap into those energy sources in a way that balances the affordability, reliability, and sustainability? And I think so much of our conversation around energy has been stuck between 2 extremes, where on the one hand is like, we only care about sustainability, or on the other hand is we only care about reliability and affordability. And I think that sustainability and especially diversity of energy sources is just such a critical part of the conversation.
Hear, hear.
And the president's talked a lot about this energy dominance agenda. Fantastic. We need energy dominance. We need to beat China. We need to win the AI race. We need to reduce costs. Like, we need to do all of those things. But that's not just drill, baby, drill for oil and gas. It's also drill, baby, drill for geothermal. It's building more nukes. It's leading in wind and solar and batteries. It's all of those different things. And I think that if we take a tribal technological approach to energy, we actually reduce our energy security, because then you're reliant on just a few different sources, and the greater diversity you have, the more secure and reliant your grid is going to be, and competing with the supply chains of the future from China and things like that. So that's basically the argument from the essay, so you don't need to go read the 3,000 words now.
Well,
Nice.
cheers to that. That's fantastic. My question is over to you, Joseph, with talking about the resources here. If geothermal is a national security asset, how should we think about financing it in a way that we do with other critical defense infrastructure?
I mean, I think the role that it plays as a national security objective, I have to offer to my colleagues kind of like, how should we think about this base level? Paying for that resilience is like a separate matter from how do we think about making sure that the benefits that we're all talking about, the potential scalability, the low carbon attributes, the reliability, are valued in a marketplace, right? The reality is we can do a lot with public procurement for the military, and that is its own important process. But to see the scale that we really need out of geothermal for the larger social benefit, markets have to drive that, right? And so where are we today? Geothermal is a very exciting technology. Geothermal provides a de minimis amount of energy in the United States. There is absolutely a case for making investments in getting down cost curves and seeing this industry scale itself out into the marketplace. That could be tax credits, that could be support from the Loan Programs Office at the Department of Energy. We have an existing ecosystem to help accomplish that. It's complemented by what our friends in the national security community can do. Then we need to make sure that the market conditions are right for entry of new technology into the energy system quickly. Some of that is a finance issue. There's a lot of money that floats around to build energy infrastructure in the United States. But we need to make sure that it's focused on high reliability, high effective capacity is what the power nerds use, right? And low carbon attributes. Like those are the two things that I think are going to be really helpful in seeing scaling here. And then related is creating a permissive environment where that financing can flow. Doesn't do us any good if we've got the right market structure and we've got an ocean of capital awaiting investment if we can't actually build things in the United States. And so making sure that the permitting and environment is capable of receiving the amount of money and technology that we can throw at this problem is a third very important aspect of the challenge.
If I could just piggyback on that
Sure.
for like 20 seconds. Are there anybody associated with grid operators here in the room? Just curious if any from like P&G's here.
Nobody wooted when I said effective capacity. So I'm like,
Therefore, that was my evidence, right? I mean, I simply say that to say, if the grid operators show that this is a reliable form of energy, they are the offtake. That is the huge market, right? And so in some sense, you need to get them in the room like this to be a part of the strategy and say, I believe in this,
Right.
and that's key.
Sure thing. I actually had a question for you next, and it's talking about the connection between AI and national security, and specifically, what further role in the future could geothermal play in that? I mean, geothermal is just getting started, establishing its roots, if you will.
Sure.
And so we're really excited to see sky's the limit, essentially. But I would like to hear from you in the role of AI.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, let's take a step back and say, we define a general purpose technology as one that subtends most functions of society. And when they show up on the world, they never go away. They tend to combine. So let's think of the modern era, the machine age. We think of the steam engine, 1780. You would have never seen the National Ignition Facility at Livermore create a star for a billionth of a second, but that's also a machine. So like once the machine age was here, it just evolved and got better and better and more awesome. Electricity, the same thing. I mean, once we created AC current, Nikola Tesla's head down on his bench trying to get AC to store in a battery. I don't think he could see the world globalized and see it electrified at night, right? It's like less than 100 years later. So these are general purpose technologies. We argue AI is one of those general purpose technologies, just like the cyber domain. It's here to stay. It's never going away. So we argue that. Therefore, it's that level of importance. You could almost take a step back and say, how important would it have been to think about the central factors of production for machine age, for the electrical age, for the cyber age, right? If you had that wisdom to look back that far and do that, you would want to say, like, what is it for AI? And energy is obviously one of the dependent variables in that. Just to give everybody a sense of scale, this is an energy crowd, but Goldman has predicted that AI demand of the algorithms as we know them today, there's 3 other trends that are playing, but let's just talk about the ones we're seeing today. We're talking like 4 terawatt hours demand, going up to 93 terawatt hours potentially by 2030. That is the entire draw of the state of Washington by 2030. So the idea is for us to lead in AI, this is tethered. And I think how quickly people have become conscious of this is really encouraging. I mean, if you look at how quick did we go from AI spiked, everyone became aware. I trust you guys are all Gen AI users in some capacity. If you haven't tried deep research in either one, you got to do it. But like everyone's become aware of the draw to the point that it's not an old discourse. It almost happened in like a year that for the nation to dominate AI, China wants to. They've had a plan to do it since 2017. That's why we did a national commission. We were just being out-organized. It's not like we had disadvantages. We were being out-organized by China. So the nation did a commission. I was proud to serve on it. But what we basically concluded that is for us to dominate in that, you have to dominate the infrastructure game. That is the strategic lens of which AI is like the central pillar of that game. There is no AI that operates with electricity. You pull a plug on all of it. So it's key to get ahead. We have argued the same thing as Chris laid out. There is a mosaic of energies where the United States have positional advantage, where geothermal's one, that if we have real programs in that, we can dominate the energy future. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I'd like to pivot over to you, Chris Murray. What technologies are pulling into the lead with the military and the Department of Defense, the Department of the Air Force, in their relative view, from the point of view that you have in the development of this? Can you give the audience some examples of that are current projects that are ongoing, and are we just developing specifically geothermal in, I guess, continental United States installations, or are we considering doing this abroad on our installations across the world as well?
You're just looking at geo or all types?
Geothermal specifically, but let's talk about all types.
We're largely tech agnostic. Again, it all gets back to that test, that three-part test: energy resilience, energy resilience, energy resilience. So if it's energy resilient, we want it. We have a requirement by Congress to have by 2030, all our critical missions worldwide have to have at least 99.9% energy resilience, which I don't know how that equates. I think it's like 8 minutes downtime, something like that a year. Developing projects, it's going to be easier doing it here in the U.S. Just because it's often our land that we own, it's our systems. When we go overseas, we're often at bases overseas where we don't own the underlying property. And we have to adhere to the rules and regulations of the host nation that hosts us. So that will slow down a project, but maybe a foreign nation has lots of incentives, like a feed-in tariff. Thank you. Like a feed-in tariff that can help with financing. But with regard to other technologies, at our office is looking at generally, there's 3 that come to the top for us. One is advanced nuclear. But we all know that's years off the road. It's got its risks. Then we have geothermal. What's not to like about it? For us, it's just we need you to drill more holes in our backyard, and let's find the money together to make it happen. And then the last one is long-duration energy storage. So those 3, and Mr. Hartman wants to pipe in with yet another one. So geological hydrogen, for shout out, I don't know if Doug Wicks is still in the room, but he's hand raised here, is one of the worldwide experts on it. Believe it or not, you could drill a hole in the ground, and there's naturally occurring hydrogen just coming out of the ground. He and his team have mapped that out. That is a source of energy just waiting to be tapped, but it's cutting edge. Same geothermal technology, same drilling technologies could be used to leverage that, and so we're trying to open that up as well. So some of our suites of technologies rely on drilling, rely on what we already know how to do, what we're good at in America. So that's the quick answer of what we're looking at.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Chris Bernard, I have another question for you. Is there a bit stronger need for a more centralized organization above individual Department of Defense branches of service to help move forward big department-wide initiatives? Should there be a more centralized DoD approach to geothermal, similar to maybe DARPA or the Strategic Capabilities Office to handle other emerging technologies?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the track record of the military and programs like DARPA on critical innovations that have helped this country, I think there's a huge role for the public sector to play there to then help, like Joseph said, help these technologies mature and then become commercializable into multi-billion-dollar companies. And you saw that with the internet, you saw that with GPS, drones, like all kinds of different technologies. And I think when it comes to geothermal, it's clear we all agree here. Hopefully everyone in the room agrees that this is something that is of critical national security interest. And so to the extent that we can streamline that at the Department of Defense and have kind of a body that's ensuring that working with DOE and other agencies to make sure that that happens with the new National Energy Council, I think that's an excellent idea. I'm not a DOD expert, so I'd probably defer to some of my colleagues that actually work there, but I think that's an important part of the puzzle, is to have the federal government identify key things that we want to focus on and then actually go and do them. I think that's one of the problems that we've seen with the federal government here in America, is that there's just so much duplication, so many things just fall through the cracks. And when we want to compete with China, the reality is when they want to go do something, they just go and do it. And we need to have a bit of that mentality in our federal government as well. What exactly that looks like, again, I'm not entirely sure, but I think that principle and that identification of key national security and energy priorities is really important, and then we need to run with those.
Wonderful, thank you. One more question I have for you, specifically focusing in on our American Conservative Coalition folks. I get to work with them very frequently in Texas, and they're a great group of people. Everybody knows young people and what's coming out of our universities. Where are some other areas in geothermal specifically that ACC could do more grassroots development, more engagement, working with policymakers, staffers at the federal level and at the state level?
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why ACC exists is because for a very long time, youth activism on environmental or climate issues has been performative activism. It's not been about constructive ideas and solutions.
Great.
Right? You think about kids that are blocking traffic, gluing themselves to buildings, throwing tomato soup at priceless paintings. Like, a lot of this has been very performative. The way that we try to counterbalance that is by actually educating young people that can be productive members of their community, and that could be like literally physically helping like plant trees in the local park or clean up the local beach or actually do something that's productive with your life, or actually know about these issues so you can go advocate for them. Last week, we had a fly-in in DC. We brought 50 of our top young leaders from across the country to meet with 60-plus offices, directly connecting constituents with their members of Congress. And I think, to my earlier point, a lot of young people have no clue how the energy system works. It's just like, oh, we'll just have 100% renewables, or we'll just have more geothermal, or whatever it might be. What we try to do is break through that kind of what we call like low energy IQ and actually like raise people's understanding of these issues. And one of the things about geothermal that we need to do is like what can we do to actually clarify property rights to make this like an easier regulatory process? What are the permitting reform things that we can do, like categorical exclusions? What are how can we build out more transmission in this country so we can connect like the energy being produced with like the people that would be consuming it? Those are all critical questions to actually making this happen. It's not enough to be in the street saying we want geothermal. You have to actually advocate for the solutions that will work. And so, like, if you talk to a lot of our people, like, I'm sure there's not many other environmental organizations where you ask them, like, what's your favorite energy source or your favorite ones, and they would say nuclear and geothermal. One of the reasons they do is because they actually understand the issues, and to the extent that we're able to connect them with the members of Congress that can then act on that and talk about the specifics and the actual ideas that work, not just the performance of it. I think that's one of the things that we really try to do.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that. So for each of my panelists up here, final thoughts. We're in a room with some policymakers here. What would be your perfect use of the next 4 years and the next opportunities that we have going forward? I'd like to hear from everyone.
Hit 'em. Happy to jump in first. We have developed this cohort of cutting-edge firms who want to develop projects. We need to develop those projects. We want to be your energy developer together. I'm just restating myself, but let us work together to find the best sites where we should go first to drill. Let us go together, hand in hand, to state governments where those facilities will be located, or to the federal government. You guys can lobby for that. I can't lobby. To get additional money. On a side note, do you have any idea how much it cost to build the Hoover Dam back in the 30s? Do you have any idea? About $150 million all in. That was for the power plant and the dam itself. It's about $2 billion in today's dollars. A $2 billion investment back in 1930 produced a century's worth of clean, affordable power for the western United States. What if we had a couple $1 billion from the government, putting aside all the cost-cutting measures that we need to have, but what if? What if we could have a large influx of money right away and build those facilities on our bases and let us be the first movers? We want to make that happen. That's our goal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely, if we're looking for more rational budget moves, we can we could cut a lot and still get a lot more with more strategic initiatives. I think the role the outcome I would love to see over the next 4 years is using the emergency authorizations, the sense of urgency that Chris talks about, and I think the administration feels around energy access, to really develop projects, right? We're talking single gigawatts. I would like to see that revised upward with respect to commercial realities to multiple, to fives and tens of gigawatts sooner rather than later. I think that sense of urgency, we need to meet our problems with the sense of urgency they deserve.
I would just add, and then Chris, maybe go to you. I think that it's pretty simple how the United States has broken out in technologies. There's a simple model where there's some common sense of destiny that we need to go do something, right? And so for the bomb, that was the World War, right? And for Apollo, really it was Sputnik in '57, in some sense led to the creation of NASA, DARPA, and PCAST. All three institutions are still here today. And then we started moving out once the president said, here is the target. We will do this by the end of the decade. It's a powerful thing that this president has already begun to do, and I would use the Iron Dome EO as a model that could be used also for energy. Like, we will build X. We will go to Y. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that like only the president can really do and is starting to do, I think, right? That's my classic example. So everyone recognizes the urgency. I think this meeting is an example of that. These panelists are an example of that. But then the president declares a goal. Congress cooperates because there is a sense of destiny. So when Kennedy declared that we will do this by the end of the decade, we will get there and return them home alive, the more challenging engineering feat, then Congress created the NASA law, which was virtually budget for NASA to achieve it. And then, as I said earlier, 81% of all that was achieved by the private sector, not by NASA. Only 19% of the kit was really NASA. So that's the model. That's the model. It's just everyone contributing to the point of getting us into that model that we know works for the nation. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, round of applause for this wonderful panel and the experts here. So thank you.
Really proud of you.
Thank you so much.